Hello everyone, this is V-Man, and I just got back from watching the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Now, I know I'm definitely known for making Mario Galaxy stuff on this channel. I mean, I've made 3 separate videos on the game at this point, and I definitely plan to make more, so stay tuned for that. So I figured it would be a good idea for me to make a review of the movie. Plus, I just really want to talk about the movie after I've seen it. I just have so much I want to say. I'll try to keep it as well-paced and concise as possible, but I could totally see myself rambling at some point. So yeah, I went to see the movie today with some friends, and before I talk about the Galaxy movie, I think I should talk about the first movie for a little bit. So I saw the original Super Mario Bros. Movie when it came out, and I remember enjoying it at the time, but there were definitely some problems I had with it. Namely, there were 3 big problems I had with it, and those were the pacing, the pandering, and Peach. And I'll start with the pacing. That's probably the biggest problem that people had with the first movie. It was just kind of all over the place. It was really fast. It really didn't feel like it was keeping to the story really well. Like, it was kind of just trying to hit as many Mario-related beats as possible, without really feeling like it was a nice, coherent story for people to enjoy, even if they weren't big Mario fans. And a lot of that does come in with just a ton of references everywhere, and the references are nice. I definitely was totally pointing at the screen all the time and being like, oh, it's the thing I remember from that one game. But it just kind of felt like there was too much going on. Like, they had the Mario Kart stuff, and the Donkey Kong stuff, and all that other stuff, and it just kind of felt like it bogged down the movie. And if they had trimmed some of that out and maybe focused on really fleshing out the story that they had, that would have helped a lot. And that goes with the pandering as well. That's basically what I mean, is there's just a bunch of references, kind of just for their own sake. And probably my most controversial or divisive opinion about the first movie is I really did not like Peach in the first movie. I know there's the whole thing of, oh, well, Peach has had her moments where she's a lot more abrasive and, like puts her foot down and gets angry and stuff. But that's not really how most people would really associate Peach unless they read that one manga or played Super Paper Mario, which I like Super Paper Mario, but that's beside the point. But it really just felt like they just made Peach an entirely different character and just said that she was Peach and made her look like Peach. Especially since, out of all the major characters in the first movie, she was basically the only one who didn't really have a major character flaw. Because in the first movie, Mario had the problem of he just doesn't know when to quit, and there was a big arc about that. And Luigi had the whole thing of, oh, he's scared all the time, and he became more brave. And Donkey Kong, he had the problem where he had to live up to his father's expectations and kind of break away from the whole being just a big dumb monkey thing. And they all grew in those ways. Even Bowser had his own thing where he had a character flaw, but since he couldn't overcome it because, he just couldn't accept that Peach didn't want to marry him and he's just a evil whatever turtle guy, that just kind of made him the villain and a lot more compelling. But Peach didn't really have any of that. I mean, she didn't really have any major, character flaws. Like the whole, especially the obstacle course, how she even said that she did it the first try. Like, you just gotta put Mario down after he took so long. But I think the worst part was when she just said that Mario just wasn't important when all the Toads were asking about him. That just doesn't sound like what Peach would do. So yeah, but other than that, I did still like the first Mario movie. It just wasn't absolute cinema for me. So I was really hoping going into the Galaxy movie that they would address these issues. And overall, I think they did a pretty good job. First, let me start with the story. I think the story is a lot better in this one. The first movie, it had the weight of having to, it had to establish everything. It had to establish Mario and Luigi's origin story. It had to introduce them to the Mushroom Kingdom. It kind of just had to be the main story beat, boilerplate Mario story, pretty much. With the main difference being that Luigi is the kidnapped one instead of Peach. And that was fine enough for what it was, but it wasn't, super exciting or anything. But the Galaxy movie, it didn't have that weight of having to establish everything, and I think that helped a lot. It gave us some time to really set up the background of the story, introduce the characters, develop the stakes, and, just go from point to point without it feeling too rushed. So I think that was a lot better. So other than that, the references felt a lot more natural. Obviously, there were still a lot of references. I mean, it is a Mario movie after all. They put plenty of them in there. I mean, there's there's the penguin suit, there's the frog suit, there's the drill mushroom from Mario Wonder, and Bowser Jr. is kind of like he is in Wonder, and yada, 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 yada. But it didn't feel as much like it distracted from it being a Galaxy movie as I expected going in. Because I saw all this stuff in the trailers, and I thought, oh no, why are they making this a Galaxy movie if they're barely gonna touch on Galaxy stuff? And I was still going in with an open mind, but it was definitely something that I was worried about. And I think they could have done a better job of it, making it feel more like a Galaxy movie, because I do think there was enough to mostly just pull from Galaxy stuff and have it still work as a good movie. But I think they still struck a pretty good balance. Maybe I wish they had swung a little more towards the more cleanly Galaxy stuff, but having this mix of mostly Galaxy and a lot of other stuff, I think it worked really well. As for Peach, I think she was a lot better in this movie. She actually seemed, nice and not like what she was in the first movie. She seemed a lot more like I would expect Peach to be in a Mario movie, which pretty much all the other characters in the first and the second movie feel like themselves, just, in a movie form instead of a game form, which means, Mario actually talks now. So, but besides that, Peach actually feels a lot more genuine, a lot more realistic, I guess I could say. So I don't really know what else to say about Peach. She seemed capable, which she is capable. That's definitely something that she does. But it didn't seem like she was just the boilerplate, strong female character that I know a lot of people have been complaining about. So yeah, I did like Peach in this movie. So all of that means that pretty much my major issues with the first movie have been shored up. So that already made it a lot better than I was expecting going in. But the other characters are actually really good too. And I think the one I want to highlight most is Bowser. And for Bowser, I didn't expect his story in this movie to be as tragic as it was. Maybe tragic isn't the right word, but you just see how he develops in this movie. And you think, oh, he's gonna backstab Mario and Luigi the instant he gets some power over them. But no, he actually becomes like a good guy kind of once he goes back to normal size. He just is going along with Mario and Luigi and Yoshi, and he even is willing to let himself be imprisoned by the Honey Queen just so that they can go on and save Rosalina. And I did not expect that. But it didn't really feel out of character for Bowser either. It felt supernatural. It made me really like Bowser in this movie. And I loved him in the first movie. I think he was probably the best character in that movie. But in this one, he was about as good, actually, even though he probably wasn't as major of a character. But yeah, I loved Bowser in this movie. The painting scene when he's, showing his painting to Mario and Luigi, that was even funnier than in the first trailer that we saw because it was expanded and, his tail got stuck in the door for longer and he breathed fire. That was really funny. But overall, when he just fell back into his old ways, he heard all of Junior's spiel about, oh, I want to conquer the universe with you, Dad. And he just actually feels really bad about going and betraying Mario and Luigi. But then he just goes full villain mode again. It makes sense that he went back to being a villain because that's Bowser for you. But it kind of hurts to see, So, yeah, it was actually way more compelling than I expected Bowser to be. I kind of just thought he'd be a boilerplate villain, and there was definitely more to him. And speaking of Bowser Jr., Bowser Jr. was actually much, much better than I expected he would be going in. I kind of just expected he would be just kind of a lame, like a step down from Bowser from the first movie, or even just the games in general, because, even in the games as a whole, Bowser Jr. is basically just, the weaker introductory Bowser to kind of get you ready for the real deal later in the game. But here he was actually really threatening, and he was just a well-written character, I think. You know, he made the whole Bowser world and the Boomsday Cannon, and he had that whole plan to abduct Peach's castle, and he got Rosalina, and he was just really competent, and it was super nice to see. I mean, a lot of people expected going in that Bowser was going to be the big bad again, especially with some of the trailers showing that he was back to normal size, but I mean, yeah, obviously Bowser was a big deal in this movie, but I say Bowser Jr. was definitely the bigger player in the movie. As for how Bowser Jr. was implemented into the movie with the paintbrush, you know, like Mario Sunshine, and being more similar to Wonder Bowser Jr., I think that was actually a really interesting choice, because in the Galaxy games, there's not really a whole lot to Bowser Jr. I mean, in the first game, he kind of just shows up, and he's like, hey, if I let you take this Grand Star, then that's gonna be bad. So here's this big bad guy that you're gonna fight instead of me. Except for, like, the second time you fight him, because the second time he's in the airship, or in Galaxy 2, he's in Mega Hammer, or the Boomsday Machine, too. But, I don't know, Bowser Jr. himself wasn't really that big of a deal in the Galaxy games. Bowser was always more of the highlight, and giving Jr. some more inspiration from the other games was a really good way to make him feel more of a major threat, which I think was super good. And also his voice, I know people have been giving some flack for how he's voiced, and I didn't really mind it personally. Maybe they could have picked someone else, but I think it was fine overall. As for other characters, I'll mention Rosalina real quick. I know a lot of people are disappointed in how Rosalina was handled in this movie. She kind of just shows up for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and she gets kidnapped, and then she's mostly just the damsel in distress for the rest of the movie, which, yeah, I can see if you were a huge Rosalina fan and you wanted to see a bunch of her in the movie, that would be disappointing, but personally, I didn't really mind that much, because in Galaxy 1, she kind of just stays behind and cares for the Lumas, gives you some advice, helps you out in some ways, but doesn't really contribute a lot to the game. I still like Rosalina in Galaxy 1, but it's kind of the truth. She just kind of lets Mario do everything. And at least in the movie, she has more importance than just, you know, a backstory, which I think is pretty neat. Maybe they could have had her do more, but overall, there were already a lot of characters to handle, and I don't really mind that Rosalina wasn't given a whole lot of spotlight. One more new Mario character I want to bring up real quick is Yoshi. I actually really like Yoshi in this movie. He's pretty funny. He has a good amount of presence in the movie. He has some good moments. He's actually just really impressive, especially all the stuff he does with his tongue, you know, like catching stuff, using it like a grappling hook. It kind of makes me wish that we could use his tongue as a grappling hook in the games. I know there's a couple where he can do that, like Galaxy 2 is actually one of the few examples that I can think of. But yeah, I really did like Yoshi. I'm glad he doesn't just talk. I'm glad he just talks like, rawr, 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 Yoshi, rawr. And I just think that's really funny, especially when he was talking about his backstory about how he was in New York. That was actually pretty funny. I did not expect that at all. As for the other characters, Mario, Luigi, and Toad, they were all fine, I guess. There wasn't really a whole lot to them that wasn't already in the first movie. It was kind of just the natural evolution of how they would feel. It was nice to see more Luigi, especially Mario and Luigi side by side, which the first movie didn't really give us a lot of, especially once they reached the Mushroom Kingdom. But this movie definitely remedied that issue with the first one as well, so that was really nice to see. And Toad, I mean, he was funny, he was fine, he did some good things, but he was just kind of there for the most part, and that's honestly kind of true for Mario and Luigi. I don't really have much to say about them other than what I've already said. They're just good. They're just good in the movie. Other characters. Big spoiler in case you got this far without clicking off if you haven't seen the movie. Fox McCloud. So, if you've seen the movie, then you know that Fox McCloud is, he's just kind of stuck in the Mario universe because of a failed warp drive or something. And his role is to basically guide Peach and Toad and eventually Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi to the Space Jump Galaxy where the Bowser planet is. And I was kind of thinking that Fox was going to be a pretty major character in this movie going in, because I had heard about him before I went in. But I honestly didn't mind his inclusion. It was kind of weird seeing Fox McCloud as a notable character in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, but considering just how much the movie already packs in a bunch of other characters, he wasn't like that big of a thing, and I thought it was just kind of neat seeing the crossover. Maybe they could have picked a different character for it, but I didn't mind it personally. I don't know why I didn't mind it. Maybe I was just in a good mood today, but it was just fun, especially seeing how he gave all the Lumas little copies of his vest. That was pretty fun. So yeah, he didn't overstay his welcome. He kind of just played support while the main Mario characters went on the Bowser planet to continue the plot. So he didn't really steal the show. He was just a nice extra character to keep along. But there were more things that I wanted to talk about. I'll once again talk about the references. There were references everywhere in this movie, and that's not surprising after the first one. I mean, like I said, there's a bunch of power-ups from other games. There's the drill mushroom from Wonder. There's the penguin suit from Mario Wii. There's the cape from Mario World. And there's like some sprite work segments throughout the movie, like the security system scene with the Mario Bros stuff, and then the rebuilding of the castle with the Mario World sprites, which is really nice. Other than that, there was, I'm sure, a bunch of background stuff, especially ones that I missed. I did see, like, POW blocks. Of course, there was the whole Mario 2 casino scene, which I'll get to in a bit. And tons and tons and tons of musical references. I was humming to myself throughout the whole movie, which maybe slightly annoyed my friends, but hopefully no one else heard it. But yeah, it was just super fun, just as a Mario fan, seeing all this stuff from all these games, and it makes me a little disappointed for people who aren't as familiar with all this Mario stuff. They're kind of just in the dark about this. So anyone who's not that familiar with Mario is just going to be lost on all of this. But as for me, I really, really enjoyed it. And for me, that's enough. At least for this time. As far as other references, there were other galaxies from the games that did show up in the background. I mean, I remember seeing planets from Spin Dig Galaxy, from Gusty Garden Galaxy, all that stuff. And it did kind of make me disappointed that we didn't really see more of these galaxies. It kind of just was a movie in space with just a few planets. And most of the galaxies that are in the games, we at most got a brief background cameo for. I mean, we did go to the Gateway Galaxy, but I was really sad that it was a completely different place from the games. I really like how the Gateway Galaxy in the game is just really quiet and peaceful, and they completely changed the tone in the movie, which is a bit disappointing. But I guess it was pretty cool to see like a galactic hub, but it did still feel a lot different from the games. Other than that, I can't really think of much in the way of specifics as far as a galaxy from the games that they went to. The closest is maybe you could say the bee planet was Honey Hive Galaxy, but it didn't really feel that similar. And of course they do name drop Space Junk Galaxy, but it feels completely different in the movie. So it was kind of sad that we didn't see a lot more of these galaxies. There's only so much they could do with this. I mean, if they visit too many of them, then it's just going to feel bloated, or they're just going to be stuck in a montage. But I was just kind of hoping it would be a little bit more like the games in that regard, but I guess it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Speaking of the Gateway Galaxy, there was the casino scene there with Wart, and I don't know if this is a controversial take. I've been trying to avoid other people's opinions until I saw the movie for myself, but I think that's probably one of the weakest scenes in the movie. It just doesn't really feel like it's very necessary. I mean, it's there so that Peach can get some information on how to get to Rosalina, which is an important thing that she needs to do, but I don't really know why it needed to be like this. I mean, sure, if you're a Mario 2 fan, which I'm not, then this scene is probably really cool, seeing all these Mario 2 characters, you know, Birdo, Wart, Ninjas, the like. But it just kind of felt like it was extra filler for no real reason. I do like the gravity shenanigans that they do in that scene, and it's kind of the only time in the movie that they do something like this, which is really surprising. I was kind of hoping that they would do more of that, but they just didn't. But anyway, it kind of felt pointless, and it's probably the one point in the movie where I feel like the original movie Peach, who just can do anything effortlessly, like trademark strong female character syndrome comes in. You know, she can fight off literally hundreds of ninjas by herself with nothing but a parasol, which is, I mean, it's a cool visual, but it just kind of felt like too much disbelief to suspend even for a Mario movie. So yeah, it would be nice if there was just maybe something else there. Can't really think of what specifically, but I just didn't really care for that scene. One thing I did like about Peach, though, is the Peach and Rosalina lore drop. So if you played the Galaxy games, you know maybe from the library that Rosalina, her backstory is basically that she went into space to help reunite Aluma with its lost mother, and then eventually they built the Comet Observatory, and then there were a bunch of other Lumas, but Rosalina was upset because she couldn't go home because her mom had died, so she didn't really have any family left, and it's a really touching story that was surprising to see in Mario Galaxy, and one of the main reasons that people still like the first Galaxy game, especially over the second one. And there wasn't much or anything of that backstory, but instead we got a completely different one. And that's actually the reveal that Peach and Rosalina are sisters, which I was not expecting. So I know there was the dropped story beat or lore beat in the first game where Peach and Rosalina were meant to be related, but that was scrapped for whatever reason. So I guess in a sense they brought that back, and I thought that was actually really cool. I'm not quite sure how that makes sense, but I don't really care. It's just kind of neat. Just seeing this long forgotten lore bit actually become real. Although I am curious if this actually applies to the games, because, the games and the movies, they definitely have differences. Like in the games, Donkey Kong is Cranky Kong's grandson, but in the movie, he's his son. So that's different. So even in the movies, there's different family stuff. So it's hard to say if this applies to the games. But I don't see why such a big deal like this, like Peach and Rosalina being sisters, wouldn't apply to the games. I wonder if this is going to come up in a later game, but it just seems like such a big thing to just drop, and if they ignore it later, to just ignore. So maybe this will become relevant in a future game. That'd be really interesting to see. So I think I've talked about all the major characters at this point. I guess real quick before I end, I'll talk about the post-credit scenes. So the first one is Bowser Jr. and Bowser, who's now Dry Bowser, in prison. And I guess they're trying to escape. But Luma Lee from the first movie is the prison warden, and it's just kind of funny that the Bowsers are really scared of Luma Lee for some reason. And I didn't really care for Luma Lee that much in the first movie. It just kind of felt like that one just completely out-of-pocket character who's mostly just funny because they're out of pocket and not because they're actually funny. And I guess in a sense that just makes me glad that Luma Lee wasn't a bigger presence throughout the rest of the movie. But it was kind of fun seeing him back. I guess it wouldn't have made sense if it just wasn't back at all. And then the second one, it reveals that Daisy is probably coming to the third movie, and I guess it makes sense because, we've had Peach, we've had Rosalina, and now we're getting Daisy. And I've actually grown to like Daisy a lot more in recent years, so I'm kind of interested to see how they'll handle her in the movie. I know a lot of people said about the first movie that movie Peach kind of feels like how Daisy should have been portrayed, and maybe I don't exactly agree with that, but it would have made a little more sense. So I'm kind of interested to see how they'll handle Daisy in the third movie. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about the movie. And overall, I really, really liked it. I don't know if I'll like it as much if I watch it again, but at least for a first viewing, I was smiling the whole time. I thought it was super fun. The story was interesting. The characters were interesting. The settings were fine, I guess. And overall, it just had a lot to enjoy. So if you're a Mario fan, then I would definitely recommend this one, which is a much better praise than I expected going into this movie. I kind of just expected it to be more of the same from the first movie, where it's just, you know, it's all right. It's fun if you like really, really like Mario, or just, you know, you want to see it because you've got kids or something. But this movie is actually just really fun. I'm not going to say it's the greatest cinematic masterpiece of all time, but if you just enjoy watching movies and you enjoy Mario stuff, I would definitely recommend this one. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the movie. So if you're new here, welcome, thank you. I make content on Mario games, especially Mario Galaxy. I've made a few deep dives about certain galaxies in the Galaxy games, and I don't plan to stop those anytime soon. I also like making content about Splatoon, so if you're a Splatoon fan that somehow watched this movie and this whole review, then stay tuned. I've got some Splatoon stuff coming up as well. So yeah, thanks for listening to what I have to say, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.